God and Man at Yale by William F. Buckley, Jr.
Dedication. For God, for country, and for Yale, in that order. Introduction by William F. Buckley, Jr. I was still familiar with the arguments of God and Man at Yale when Henry Regnery, its original publisher, asked whether I would furnish a fresh introduction to a reissue of it. But I had not seen the book since I had finally closed its covers 6 months after its publication in the fall of 1951. It had caused a most fearful row and required me over a period of several months to spend considerable time rereading what I had written, sometimes to check what I remembered having said against a reviewer's rendition of it, sometimes to reassure myself on one or another point. The prospect of rereading it a quarter century later, in order to write this introduction, was uninviting. Granted, my reluctance was mostly for stylistic reasons. I was 24 when I wrote the book, freshly married, living in a suburb of New Haven, and teaching a course in beginning Spanish at Yale University. I had help, notably from Frank Chodorov, the gentle elderly anarchist, friend and disciple of Albert J. Nock, pamphleteer, editor, founder of the Intercollegiate Society of Individualists, a fine essayist whose thought turned on a single spit all the reasons why one should be distrustful of state activity, round and round and round again. And help also from Wilmore Kendall, at that time a tenured associate professor of political science at Yale, on leave of absence in Washington, where he worked for an army think tank. "Every time I ask Yale for a leave of absence," he once remarked, "I find it insultingly cooperative." Kendall had greatly influenced me as an undergraduate. He was a conservative, all right, but invariably he gave the impression that he was being a conservative because he was surrounded by liberals, that he'd have been a revolutionist if that had been required in order to be socially disruptive. Those were the days when the Hiss Chambers case broke, when Senator McCarthy was first heard from, when the leaders of the Communist Party were prosecuted at Foley Square and sentenced to jail for violating the Smith Act. That conviction greatly incensed Kendall's colleagues, and a meeting of the faculty was called for the special purpose of discussing this outrage on civil liberties and framing appropriate articles of indignation. Kendall listened for 2 hours and then raised his hand to recite an exchange he had had that morning with the colored janitor who cleaned the fellows' suites at Pearson College. "Is it true, Professor," Kendall, with his Oklahoma drawl idiosyncratically Oxfordized while he studied as a Rhodes Scholar in England, imitated the janitor, "is it true, Professor, that there's people in New York City who want to destroy the government of the United States?" "Yes, Oliver, that is true," Wilmore had replied. "Well, why don't we lock 'em up?" That insight, Kendall informed his colleagues, reflected more political wisdom than he had heard from the entire faculty of Yale's political science department since the meeting began. Thus did Kendall make his way through Yale.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?